the first present. Thank you. This will be one of the first presentations about Arch Creek Trust and the history of Arch Creek. And we'll learn about FIU's archive of Arch Creek materials. So thanks everybody for coming. I want to say on a personal note, my family was one of the early pioneers of Arch Creek. My grandfather was born in Arch Creek in 1899 and grew up there. And the home that they have is still there. It's a historic landmark. So it's on 16th Avenue at about 119th Street. And so I became involved in trying to save that home from being torn down when they built a development there. And a developer, a Cornerstone group, turned out to be very cooperative. And not only did they help save the house and refurbish it, but they changed the architectural style of the development they were building to match the vernacular style of the old house. So it was one of those rare win-win deals where the developer cooperated and embraced the whole, style of the home and the property. And so I was very happy to work with Dade County Historical Preservation Department and with the Arch Creek Trust was very helpful in allowing that to happen. So just on a personal note, I'm so happy that we can now share a lot of what goes on at Arch Creek with you guys. And I think you'll find it fascinating and really wonderful. Just a quick note of what's coming up in the future. We have Eric King is going to give us a presentation on the old orchid jungle. Who remembers ever going to the orchid jungle, where every lady gets a free orchid or something, right? And it's funny, the family, they struggled with it for a while. They had a beautiful place. They never made a lot of money. They were one of the first winners of the Florida lottery. And what did they do? They just shut the place down and took the money, So it's funny, but it is one of the most beautiful natural hammocks in all of South Florida. And I mean, there's rare ferns that grow in there that aren't anywhere else. And we have Eric King's going to give us a talk about that. It's really fascinating. Now, one of the most interesting people that I know is a photographer for the Miami Herald who's been around a long time. Who remembers Al Diaz? Al Diaz started in 1983 as a sort of an intern photographer. And next thing you know, he was connections with the Associated Press and stuff. And ever since then, they have sent him to wherever there was some action happening that they needed somebody, right? So imagine the stories that this guy can tell, right? Hurricane Andrew, the cocaine cowboys, all of Miami's eras of really interesting recent history. So we're going to have Al Diaz with us to talk about that coming up. Next month, we don't have a program, but here's the good news. We're going on a field trip because next month on March 9th, there's a special event at Arch Creek. It's called Let's Meet at the Bridge. And so I'm inviting everybody, instead of meeting here at the library, we're going to meet at Arch Creek to enjoy a beautiful day there and understand even more about it. So I'll send a note about that. So that's a little bit about upcoming programs. And now, today, here we are. I am so happy to introduce Susan Weiss and Ximena Valdivia. I probably got your name really wrong. You can correct me. From FIU Libraries. And both are well involved also in the Arch Creek Trust. And we now have a lot of material available and digitized to tell the story of Arch Creek. So it's such a pleasure to introduce the ladies to be with us today and tell us the story about Arch Creek, the Arch Creek Trust, and about FIU's archive of Arch Creek materials. Ladies?
Hello, my name is Susan Weiss, and I've been involved with the Arch Creek Trust for a little while.
We'll turn up the microphone just a second. Oh, turn it on.
Turn it on.
Yeah, the light.
Okay, let's try it again for the third time. My name is Susan Weiss. I have lived in Miami area since 1978. I've been involved with the Arch Creek Trust and the Arch Creek Park for almost that length of time, because when I moved to Miami, North Miami, I was working at Florida International University Library, the one in North Miami. And I was living across the street from Arch Creek Park. And I could walk there. So I walked out of my apartment, I crossed Biscayne Boulevard and went to the park and became involved. So let's get started. I'm first going to talk about the site and show you some maps. I love these maps. Somebody had these maps in their papers from the Arch Creek Trust, and here they are. Let me get close to it. They're survey maps from the state of Florida. And you'll see they seem to be covering the same area. Down here in the written information, there are two dates. One date is 1845, the other date is 1870. And you can't read it here, but they're the names of the men who did the surveys. 1845 and a couple of dates in 1870. Now, what I love about these maps, I have to come over here and show so I can see. This right here is Arch Creek, and it says Arch Creek. And in modern terms, this is Arch Creek. So this would be 135th Street. The Arch Creek continues down here. So that would be probably Arch Creek Drive in North Miami. Here's Biscayne Bay, of course. These islands, these are Bay Harbor Islands. There's some words here. It says Baker's Hollow. So over here, we're Baker's Hollow, or Hollover Park. Here it is. Dumbfoundling Bay up in North Miami Beach. Little Snake River, Little Snake Creek, which is the Oleta River or Snake Creek up in North Miami Beach. So it also has Indian Trail. This one over here, which is from 1870, has Military Trail. It's also, so anyway, I wanted to show you these so I can almost put it in modern terms to give you an idea where it is. In fact, this would be Biscayne Boulevard up here, and this would be the FIU campus, if you're familiar with any of those places. But these are available from the archives, which you can look at on your own computer and make it bigger so you can see everything. Okay. And here it is in modern times. Today, yesterday, a few years ago. And George did it. I did it, okay. This is Biscayne Boulevard. This is 135th Street, Keystone Point. The park, today's Arch Creek Park, is this section right here. And across, and this is the railroad tracks. Henry Flagler's Railroad came through in 1896 and divided the natural land that was there. Enchanted Forest belongs to North Miami, the city of North Miami. And Arch Creek, actually the land belongs to the state of Florida, and they have leased it to the county. So it's part of the Miami-Dade Parks Department. And what this means is you actually have two different authorities. So it would be nice to think that the people that worked in these different places could work together for the benefit of the whole area. Well, you're talking about the city of North Miami and the county. Good luck with that, but it's fine. We get along and we take care, we try to do our best to take care of the parks and the creek. So, and I don't know when these were made, but some of these businesses are no longer here. And so anyway, so here we are. Next, please. A little bit of the archaeology history. These are shells, not shells, they're pottery that were found, that were dug up in the Arch Creek site, probably in the 50s, 1950s and 1960s. And can't see their name, they're Arch Creek, at the top, they're Arch Creek, they have the name of Arch Creek decorative style. Now over here, some images I think of the the Seminole Indians, who would have been there around in the 19th century. I said Tequesta, and I didn't say that the Tequesta people pretty much lived in the Arch Creek area, starting from about 3,000 years ago and up until probably maybe the 1400s BC. So the long history of habitation in that area. Okay, now here is a report, Arch Creek Site Archaeology Report. This is from a report done in 1972. Arch Creek Site located where the military road trail. And this is it. And when you go online and you go to the archives, you'll be able to read the entire document and get all the information. I wanted to highlight the sentence just to give you an idea of the history. The Arch Creek site was a substantial small village, well located for food sources. So that's why it was so popular. And there are also other documents telling about the archaeological digs. There's a few more. So, that you can read, and there'll be illustrations. Okay. You'll see the history right at the bottom of it. General Motors purchased the area for a car lot. This was in the 1970s. And local people went up in arms, and they were able to prevent the further destruction of the site by the building of a used car lot. Right. Okay, this is a classic picture of the bridge, the original bridge. And people on the bridge, and most likely they were tourists. Tourists who were staying at Henry Flagler's Royal Palm Hotel in downtown Miami on the Miami River. And they would come up by wagon, I don't know, obviously not on the State Boulevard, but they came up by wagon and to visit the bridge, and they had picnics there. And there's a lot written about that. And here on the bottom is a man in a little boat. It's a good picture because it gives us a good view of the original bridge.
Is it still there?
What?
The bridge?
In a manner of speaking. It's no longer the original bridge, but more to come. Stay tuned. Okay. All right. Here is a little bit about little history. In 1855 to 1858, during the Third Seminole War, there was a bridge. The U.S. Army built a bridge, not a bridge, sorry, they built a military trail going from the Miami River up to Fort Lauderdale. And of course, the natural bridge provided a way to get over the creek, the Arch Creek. History of the military trail, First County Road, the railroad tracks, Dixie Highway. It never ends. The Army Corps of Engineers wanted to blow up the bridge to promote, flood flood preventions. And once again, people protested and saved that from happening. And this is oh wait, go back a second.
Susan, if
Yeah.
you come on this side and use the microphone, I think we can hear you in the back.
Okay.
But if that's okay. You could probably do it from either side.
Okay,
Okay,
oh, this is
thank
good.
you.
This photograph is from the 1950s. And this is the original bridge, when it was used as a road. So obviously they had this wall here, so people would drive off the bridge into the creek. Some tourists taking their picture on the bridge. Okay. What's next? Oh, yeah. Now, I'm talking about a woman named Jessie Freeling, who was very involved in working to preserve the park. And I found this clipping from, I believe it's the Miami News from 1945, which says that at a commission meeting, a county commission meeting in 1945, J.S. Freeling wrote a letter proposing that this natural coral bridge over Arch Creek be presented to the commission. The letter, she wanted to preserve the bridge. The bridge should be preserved. And the county commissioner, chairman, Charles Crandon Park, he was favorably, he looked on favorably to that proposal, and that's all I'm getting from this clipping. And I'm trying to find that actual letter. It's an 80-year-old letter that was written to the county commission. Here, take this, and where is it now? Well, I'm contacting the public library, and they might be able to help find the actual letter. Kind of exciting. And the thing over here, the paper over here is a song, Meet Me at the Bridge. She wrote a song with music about the experience. While waiting for my friend one day upon Old Arch Creek shore, my mind slipped down that timeless stream to what had been before. And this song lives on. We are trying to find, we have the lyrics here, we're trying to find the music. We're exploring libraries and other sources. If anyone has it, let us know. But it's still relevant for us today, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay. This is from 1972, letter from Harvey Reuven, who you may remember was a county commissioner for many years and then was a clerk of the courts for Dade County. Harvey was hired to be the attorney for Arch Creek during the early days when the people were working to preserve the land. He wrote a letter to the mayor of North Miami Beach about doing a dig in the area, the Arch Creek area. Now, the mayor of North Miami Beach wrote back, this land belongs to the Chrysler Corporation. So anything you find belongs to the Chrysler Corporation. Okay, there was a lot of letters back and forth. But just to give you an idea of what was involved in this enterprise. I have some more paperwork, a designation report, the Arch Creek Historical Site, designated by the county as a historical site, site location. The survey rated the archaeological preservation quality as 3 and 2, whatever those numbers mean. At the bottom, it says State of Florida on lease to Metro-Dade County, which, as I explained, land belongs to the state. Now, there is an agreement between the state and the county, and it expires in 2028. It was signed in 1978. It expires in 2028. And what this means, that if they don't continue to want to keep this as a park, it's going to become a development. So there's really some urgency, a sense of urgency among us. You know, we have to make sure that we get past this deadline and do what it takes to preserve the land. And that's why the Arch Creek Trust is so important.
So we're never done saving this place, are we?
Yeah, it's always something. Literally, it's always something. Okay. Okay, now this is an article from a local newspaper, very informative for us. It's from 1982. It's about the dedication of the park, the Arch Creek Memorial Park, Metro Dade County's newest preserve of one of the oldest sites in the park system. This is 1982. Now he says in his article, Dade County has a 99-year lease. I think that's wrong, it's a 50-year lease. Alice Cohn was one of the people very important in the preservation of this land. As you see, she was elderly and not in good health at this time, but she wanted to be involved. She wanted to make sure that, you know, people got the information and knew about how important it was. She also talked about the bridge. They're rebuilding the bridge. They rebuilt the bridge. They did rebuild the bridge. The Army Corps of Engineers actually built the structure. A local artist, Louis Vandekar, some of you may have been familiar with him because he was a local character.
A character.
Quite
the character.
You would agree? So the bridge was rebuilt. It's not the original one. The artist Vandekar worked on the surface of it to make it look like the original limestone. So that's what you'd be seeing. But, you know, you do have the photographs that you can compare what's there now and how it was originally. A little bit of controversy. A North County policeman was shot in the park. He was pursuing somebody and he was shot there. And the Policemen's Benevolent Association wanted his name to be in the name of the park. So there was some discussion, there was controversy, and eventually his name, it is Carl Mertes, so it's Arch Creek Park, Memorial Park for Carl Mertes. And here, the last paragraph, they talked about, they sang a song. At the end of the ceremony, they sang a special song written by Jesse Freeland, Meet Me at the Bridge. So, within our living memory, someone sang a song. Okay. Next. Okay. Now, this is just to show you some of the work that the Arch Creek Trust did in helping the park, preserve the park, improving the park. No, what happened?
Go back one.
Okay. The plan to preserve and protect with the Arch Creek Group Trust, members of the committee, the Parks and Recreation Department, and Roger Hammer. I'm sure you all know Roger Hammer, right? The archaeologist and naturalist. So this was something that was done to help improve the park. What it needed at that time was to be cleared of all the invasive species, the vines and the plants that had to be cleared by hand. I worked on some of that. So this was the plan, and obviously the whole plan will be included in the archives, in the digital archives that you have access to. Okay, here's another document, Metro Dade Preservation Board. This is about the military trail, which was constructed in 1857 during the Third Seminole War by the Army. And it is given historic designation.
The mention of Abner Doubleday.
Well, Alfred Doubleday was an officer in the Civil War, and he was, assigned to this area, and he was involved in, doing this. And they bring up his name because he's credited with being involved in the invention of baseball, which I have read is not true. It's a story, but that's why maybe it'll help, preserve the bridge, the road. Now, Robert Carr, you may know Robert Carr. He was the county archaeologist at the time. He's been involved. He's been so involved with Arch Creek Park. I think he loves it. Well, he probably loves all the things he works on. But this was the first place where he actually did his first archaeological dig. So he really appreciates the park. He has very good things to say about the trust and how helpful they've been and how important the role of the trust was in preserving this park. Okay. Oh, look at this picture. I love this. The collapsed bridge is so dramatic. I only saw this picture within the last year or so, considering all the time that I've been involved with the trust. The collapsed bridge, very dramatic pictures. And that's what it is.
And the timing of that was interesting. It was just after the group had been to Tallahassee and gotten the historic designation. They came back that weekend and the bridge collapsed.
Right, Leo plans things like this. And then, of course, after that, people lost interest, or the state lost interest. Well, the bridge isn't there, what's the point?
Right.
But the trust, the people in the trust kept on working at it, so it's still a preserved piece of land. This is a letter from the artist Louis Vandekar, to our group. Elmore Kirkla was the president or vice president at the time. And he offered to do this work for the price and so on. And this is there's more information about him in the archives. Okay. Modern, as I said, this is what the official name of the park is. And here's a plaque giving a very brief history of the park. This is a map. This is 135th Street. This is Biscayne Boulevard. And some trails within the park. And of course, here is the Arch Creek, the stream that comes from the Everglades. It goes out to Biscayne Bay. This is the location of the bridge. Yeah, the butterflies, it's really a nice place in there. And okay, now I talk about the organization, which is the people. Now here's a minutes from a 1980 meeting. The meeting was called to order, met in the First Church of North Miami, which is on 135th Street at 12th Avenue, just a few blocks from the park. The bylaws, and some more information. Now, Maureen Harwitz was so important, and still is, very important in the preservation of the park. She was involved from the very beginning. The story I heard, it was that her son's teacher, this is back in the 70s, maybe the 60s, teacher took the class to visit the park. Well, it wasn't a park at the time, it was just a place. She learned about this particular area from her son, and got her interested, and it's so interesting how these things work out. And this was like this has been her life's work since then, since the 70s.
And she also mentions Jim King, who was very important in the Parks Department at that time. And his son, Eric King, is the one who will be doing the presentation on the old orchid. So there is a family connection there. And Jim was very important in terms of being the champion in the Parks Department it was gonna help save this property.
And what's interesting, Eric King is a folk singer.
Yeah.
And he is very interested in getting the music to the song. And if we can find it in time, he will sing the song at the March 9th event.
Right.
So that's kind of an exciting thing.
And he also said that if he couldn't find the music, he would make up some music. But
Yeah,
anyway, whether or not, he's gonna sing that song that day and bring it back.
yeah.
So,
So, history in the making, really. All right, an agreement. I guess this is an agreement with the county about the Arch Creek Trust and what they're gonna do. Preserve, protect, defend the natural character of the Arch Creek area. And that's what they've been doing for the last 50, 60 years.
and Maureen is still the president.
Maureen has been incredible. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have gotten this far. She was a lawyer, she's a lawyer, she was a lawyer, she is a lawyer. And when you look at the archives, all the documents, there are so many letters from Maureen to Maureen, from the North Miami, from North Miami Beach, from other lawyers, because she was always objecting to things that the cities were doing to eat out or take away parts of the park. A lot going on there.
It does go to show you that one person, many people, but getting one person with some skin in the game can really have a profound effect locally on local history. And we have a lot of examples of this. Maureen is a great one.
Right, now here's some more people. Here's a letter to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas from probably the president of the group of the Arch Creek Trust. We were happy that she came to the dedication, and she was always involved. She visited the park several times. She was a great supporter of the preservation of the park. The letter over here on the side is from Thelma Peters, who you're probably familiar with, a great local historian, wrote books about North Dade, Lemon City, Biscayne Country, and she wrote a letter giving a little bit of history, the military trail, and so on. I commend your efforts to restore the bridge and to preserve and beautify the area. So, Thelma Peters. Now, this letter in the middle refers to a report on the Arch Creek area written by Arbor Moore Parks. Once again, a local historian who you may be familiar with. Now, she wrote this report in 1972 for the Parks Department. We have not been able to find it. I say this because maybe someone would have some idea. Maybe it's at the University of Miami, maybe it's in the state, at the state, Department of Land Preservation. There's a notation here. I can document. Now, the person who wrote this type page seems to have a problem with something that Arva said in her report. And what I'm seeing is here, I can document 8 parks. I'm seeing that Arva wrote this comment, wait, what I said is true. So we don't know, and I hope that we can find this report. It's probably buried somewhere. Someone just got it.
It was an issue of who built Military Trail.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. About 20 years ago, there was a report on the local news, Channel 10. They were reporting on every year we have an event, the Meet at the Park thing. And for some reason, it was a Saturday, must have been a slow news day. And the Arch Creek event was like the top story on Channel 10. And Michael Putney was reading it. And he said the Arch Creek Bridge was built by the Indians. And who do I tell this to but a group of, interested people. Okay, so, All right, so these are some publicity of some of the events that we've had over the years. Arch Creek Harps in the park. They sat on the porch of the museum and played harps. It was really lovely. That's from 1983, I believe. And this is something from 2005, Meet at the Arch, which is the kind of thing that we'll be having in 2 weeks, next month.
And by the way, I'll just say, I made that flyer.
Okay, there you go.
And what we were trying to do was go back historically and recreate events. And really, literally, if you imagine, the Arch is such a unique item that even 10,000 years ago, if one Indian said to another, let's meet at the Arch, you knew what that meant, right? And so there were stories in my family history of the great events that happened at the Arch, where they would have barbecues that would last all weekend and everybody met at that Arch Bridge. And so our idea was to recreate that meeting at the Arch Bridge that had gone on just for millennia. And we had a big barbecue and we invited everybody to come. The stories, again, I'll say quickly that I had heard, my great grandfather was the chairman of the county commission, and he said that if you wanted to be in politics in Dade County, you had to go to Arch Creek and feed people at the barbecue. This is like shaking hands and, yeah, I'm your buddy, who are you gonna vote for? Have some pork, So recreating that sort of simple, and really it wasn't easy to get around Dade County back then as it is now, traffic. But people all came for the weekend to the Arch and gathered together. And it was like George Washington offering you some rum at the pub if you'd vote for him. I mean, old style, hand greeted politics, right? So that was what we were trying to do in 2005, was revive that idea of a simple community gathering at a natural place. And that, to me, that's some of the real value of the place.
That's a great story. Talking about the Arch, we had last year at this event, Meet at the Bridge, we had an old North Miami fire engine and a police car on the bridge. And that was a great attraction, and I'm going to be having that again, some old cars or trucks on the bridge. So that's worth coming to see. Okay.
And there was always a plant sale. Native plants were always for sale at these events.
Thank you.
Nice work, Susan.
Thank you.
So,
hi everybody, my name is Ximena Valdivia. I am a cataloging and metadata librarian at the Florida International University, and I'm going to talk to you about the Arch Creek, the project. And I refer to this collaborative project between the FIU Library and the Arch Creek Trust to preserve the organization's archival records that document the history of Arch Creek since the earliest time to the present. So this project is the result of a long-standing conversation between FIU Library faculty and trust members, because you might know that it takes a long time and dedication to build trust between partners, and especially if these are donors, and in this case, the Arch Creek is a donor of bibliographic material. So there was an agreement between both parties, and they, among other things, they defined three main goals. So the first one, digitize the organization's records, including creating descriptive metadata and making digital content available online through the FIU Digital Repository. The other one was design a timeline highlighting important historical events, figures, and dates in a chronological fashion. One of the software that they considered for the timeline was Omeka, but at the end they used GIS Story Map, which is very popular these days. So the third project goal was develop academic lesson plans associated to the Arch Creek history. I'm not so sure that we have completed this part of the project yet. So the collection includes a wide range of materials, including reports, newspaper clippings, correspondence, minutes of meetings, flyers, programs with events, photographs, scrapbooks, and now we are building oral histories. So it seems like every president of the trust took the responsibility of collecting and preserving the records that were produced during their tenure. Some members of the organization also collected their own copies of the records. So before sending the materials to the FIU library, somebody took the time to sorting out the papers and removing some of the duplicates. So this is how we receive the collection. But after a few sessions of work, you can see here the volunteers working, and it was during the pandemic. This is how the collection looks today. So on the left side, on the right side of your screen, you can see the physical paper. On the other side, you can see an intellectual organization of the collection, which an archives we call finding aid. So what worked well? First, volunteers brought relevant knowledge and expertise and skills and experiences from both beyond and about the collection. Our volunteers, all members of the trust, knew the collection very well, and the history and the preservation of the site was their passion, which they have dedicated years and probably decades of their lives. To me, it was fun to be around them because I was always learning something, fun or an anecdote or fact, about the Arch Creek. So there is true and serious commitment to the work by the volunteers and of course by the FIU staff, especially Brian Cooper, who is the force behind the project. So volunteers digitize thousands of pages of records. Others perform some basic preservation work on the materials, and they also assisted in generating the description of the digital item, which we call metadata. Even though this is not the first experience of FIU with a community organization, I think this project has led the FIU libraries developing a stronger relationship with community groups and local organizations. This type of relationship requires time to build trust and also requires a lot of flexibility, but has given FIU greater visibility and influence. So even though this project was designed to allow the organization making decisions and keeping their autonomy and their identity, there was a group of FIU professionals available all the time for consultation on every aspect of the project, which is a learning experience for everybody. And by performing basic preservation practices like, refoldering, reboxing, removing metallic fasteners from the materials, we have extended the life of these records that document an important part of the local history and will give future generations a picture of the past that can help inform future events. So you as an organization, if you have records, so please start by removing the paper clippings that you have there, or don't fix items with tape, because those are the two most damaging things that you can do on
Paper
items.
clips and tapes.
No, at all.
Staples, not so bad,
Well, no, well, I guess it's anything metallic.
right?
Because it's going to rot with the
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
We also have some challenges. So training is actually related to the expertise and the knowledge that volunteers brought with them, because that varied. We had some volunteers who were almost experts in scanning items, which sometimes is an issue because if we set some standards in the archives and that doesn't match whatever they know, we have to redo some of the work, and that happened. And some other volunteers didn't even know how to use a mouse. So working with volunteers is like a one-to-one activity. And we wanted them to feel sure about the work that they were doing, like confident that the work that we're doing was the right thing. But I do believe that in archives or in this type of work, there are many different type of activities and tasks. and it is easier to find the right activity for the right person. So with the different levels of expertise, some volunteers needed more attention than others, or more assistance than others. And there was also an issue of availability, my availability, because when they didn't want to do things if I wasn't there, or I was busy. And if I wasn't there, they didn't do their work, so that takes longer to finish the project. So the planning is more like an internal challenge. I think we didn't plan proper quality control or developing guidance in collection management. We didn't either clarify specific roles and responsibilities. So I believe that a more clear working plan would have been more useful and would have made the work easier. So the usual lack of resources to cover costs associated with building, managing, and caring for collections so they can be used by and useful to the public. With more financial resources, we would have had more items available online. And it is a major concern for FIU staff to digitize and making available some materials for which we do not own the rights. For the members of the organization, it is the right thing to do because that preserves the history. We are talking about digitizing, articles, chapters of books, or sometimes the whole book. So it was a lot of explaining and reasoning with the volunteers that we were not supposed to do that. Actually, yesterday we were discussing that with Susan, so it's still something present. I do believe that in order for this project to be successful, so the team needs to have a clear purpose. If possible, a company with procedures accessible to everybody, everywhere, and at all times. Preferably a detailed working plan in writing. So documenting this experience and what we have learned may serve other projects and other community organizations and libraries. Documentation improves quality of the work and ensures projects run smoothly. And I can say that I've been able to advise out-of-state organizations because they didn't have the experience of working with volunteers. So our projects can be replicated. At the end of this project, we have improved access and preservation of a valuable community source, which is important for the trust, and it is a core value for the archival profession as well as for FIU. And this is a very personal thought. Archives and library professional organizations should think more about this type of work beyond a specific project. Providing training, developing models that can be used by other organizations that can replicate the projects, demonstrating the value of the archival work and volunteering, and making sure that collecting initiatives are more representative of the diverse society that we live in today. Because in this digital era, people are less sensitive to the care of physical and traditional materials. And trust me, accidents happen, systems don't work the way they're supposed to, and sometimes you may lose the entire collection. So keep your papers, at hand. So we have prepared a virtual tour to the collection. Let me see if I can go. Okay. This is very short.
To access FIU Digital Repository, you have to go to dpanther.fiu.edu. There are two ways to get into the collection you are looking for. In the advanced search box, click on All dPanther Collection, and the list of FIU projects will appear. Scroll up or down and select the collection you are looking for. Or, in the Partners/Contributors page, scroll down and select the Arch Creek Trust Digital Collection. The collection landing page will be displayed. All metadata records associated with this particular collection will be displayed. To browse the collection, Users may check any record on any page. Or they can limit their browsing by using the default filters on the left side of your screen. Your options are topic, geographic area, author/creator, publisher, type, and language. For a search, you may use a searching box. This will list results by keywords. You may search any keyword such as archaeology. We retrieve results with the keyword included in any part of the description. In this case, one of the records is titled The Arch Creek Site, an archaeology report. The record will provide not only descriptive information, but also access to the digital version of the file. You may click on the arrow cross to display the full screen and escape to exit the full screen. You may also click on any highlighted field to find items that share the same matching entries. Happy browsing and enjoy the research. To access.
Sorry. So on this slide, we have added a few collections that are available through dPanther, through the FIU dPanther, that may help you in your research. And thank you. Do you have questions?
Questions, yes.
Are there any historical buildings on the site of the park? Number one, and number two, are there any attorneys working with the Arch Creek group to look for loopholes like what the youth fair did at Tamiami Park, so that the college couldn't take over because they would have to rebuild all of the buildings that the youth fair has put up? Is anybody doing anything, looking for things like that, that would keep builders?
There are no actually buildings left on the site. There is evidence of a Kunti mill sluice. I mean, when the water was flowing regularly from the Everglades out to the bay, and I'm thinking it was the 1830s, 1840s, some early pioneers would go around collecting Kunti. You know, there wasn't any wheat growing, you know, you had to have starch to bake and stuff. And they would grind up the Kunti, which can be a little dicey in terms of being a little bit poison, right? But you have to treat it right. And then they ran a little mill from the water flow. And there's still some evidence of that. And you'll see when you search the documents for early archaeology, that comes up, the evidence of that. We've always said we wanted to send some divers down to the bottom and see what might be stuck in the muck, you know? So maybe someday in the future, you know, typically there'll be bottles, you know, a knee-high bottle from 1920, somebody tossed it over the bridge, or a bicycle tire. I mean, who knows, you know, a gun. I don't know, what do people throw off a bridge, right? And then the years when it was really more of a thoroughfare, when cars were driving it over more, you know, Military Trail was West Dixie Highway. So there may be more stuff there. In terms of lawyers, yes, Maureen is still our leader, and she has quite a long history of being the lawyer advocate for the property. And we do know that the state of Florida recently, under the current administration, has been selling off a lot of state land, you know, getting rid of assets, right? And so we know that Arch Creek property is not immune from this sort of, well, what good is it anyway, you know, sell it to somebody. So we all know that sometimes we have meetings where we don't do much, but we talk about the plant sale, and sometimes we have meetings where we need to do something really serious. Like right now, the issue of water quality is a big issue. They put a dam right by 135th Street. And so the days where the water flowed from the Everglades freely out to the bay are over, and it builds up, guess what, plastic and stuff, what people throw in the water. And so we're always trying to work with the water management district to get them to come out. Sometimes we have to shame them into showing them pictures and
and then they send a crew out and clean it up. But what we need is regular, long-term solutions to water quality. When you look at the old photos, and I don't think it takes a lot of imagination to imagine, the water was completely clear. And now it's not clear. And so I know that the purpose of the dam is to keep high tide and lowering water, problems from bringing salt water back up the stream. So, but it's a big issue.
And let me say something. The idea of the park is to keep it in a natural state.
Right.
So that's why we haven't built anything, or there is nothing there.
Right.
That's the actual value of the park, because the archaeological part of the park is also important, so you can find things everywhere or anywhere.
And every day when we're having a meeting, the train goes by, we have to stop talking for a few minutes.
And the other thing
Right
is,
there, you know.
lawyers help a lot, but the community helps more.
Yeah.
That's why we are doing this event. We bring people because the support of the community has more weight in whatever work we are doing, because your vote counts.
And people only save what they love. And if you don't know anything about it, it's just a story you read, but some days we all need to stand in front of a tractor or a bulldozer someday,
Because things happen before you know.
literally or figuratively.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
So,
thing is, Miami now has so many people like me, coming from outside. We don't know much about the history of Miami. We think there is no history in Miami. And just knowing these places is wonderful.
we all see that. I mean, we're sitting here because we care about local history, but among all the people we know, they're not sitting here. And, there's a general sense that there's no history here, isn't there?
Right.
You see that among people. Question?
I have a question about your music. If they were bringing people there from the Rural Farm Hotel, would any archival music be available from what they used to entertain their guests with before they took them by wagon to the arch?
It's a good question. In terms of the music,
Yeah,
we're searching high and low for that music.
how
And
would you start in that area?
they never really went in a recording studio and recorded it. It
I'm
was,
sorry.
they never recorded it officially and put out a record. In which case someone might have the record at home,
Well,
but
I
we're,
understand it, but what I was thinking was sheet music, somebody had written down, and they just played it there, so
yeah,
That's what we haven't been able to find.
we hope to find the sheet music
Yes.
and,
And we are looking for, we are searching and,
it's such a beautiful lyric about Arch Creek and it describes it so well that, as I said, Eric King is ready to write a new, music for it so that the song lives on and the value of it is appreciated.
now,
So we'll see.
and also in the meantime, we are working with other communities, trying to make this place more, available or known, like the MoMA Museum or different schools, because we want this to be more, widely known.
And there's a balance between the fact that right now, it probably has, of all of the parks in Dade County, 79,000 people a day drive by it on Biscayne Boulevard on 135th Street and don't know it's even there. So, and the other hand, we don't want it to become so popular that you can't even get in there and park and people leave trash. So somewhere is a balance of appreciation and protection.
And preservation.
Yes. Question?
Yes, the poster that you made in 2005,
Yeah.
barbecue, is that an annual event? Is that continued?
It hasn't been every year, because of the sort of ebb and flow. What was an annual event every year was the native plant sale was probably the main fundraiser. Would you say, Susan?
Yeah, there was always something with plants every year.
Yeah. And
Maybe two things a year.
And it was around 2002, 2004 that we started thinking, let's bring back that old barbecue thing and meet at the bridge. So it's been on and off and on and off in here. But when we go on a field trip next month, you'll see the purpose is to invite people who appreciate
and come together and enjoy the park for a day and just gain appreciation. Yes, you want to share your,
I will, yeah, but I also had a couple of questions for Susan.
Sure.
Susan, do you know the depth of the creek? You were talking about perhaps dredging or looking for things, but I was just
Yeah.
curious, what is the depth of that? I mean, like the New River in Fort Lauderdale's huge, deep, and
Yeah.
but I was wondering what the depth of the creek is. Do you have any idea? Maybe not.
No, I don't, but, I don't have any idea.
Well, my second question is, do you know the date when they built the wall to keep the cars from going over? Do you know when that one was built? Because originally there wasn't any wall.
Right.
So I wondered if you knew when they built that wall, because some of the postcards show the wall and some don't, but I
Okay.
don't have a clear delineation.
it was later, and I do know this. In 1916 was around the time that Biscayne Boulevard was built. And before that, Military Trail is the oldest road in Dade
Right.
County. It was the only road.
Yeah.
So at some point, all traffic went that way. And cars really didn't become popular until after 1910.
Well, when you
So-
finish with other questions, I'll go ahead and show you.
Yeah, so it was somewhere later in the more modern era. But eventually Biscayne Boulevard took the traffic.
Sure.
Lucian,
Somewhere in there, so, the county is leasing it from the state, or the state's leasing it to the county.
That's right.
correct? And there's only, 2028 is the,
4 more years, yeah,
so the time is getting short.
right.
We need to get a little, maybe more interested in something.
Well, we're gonna have to play politics, right? Who's gonna be governor then?
Exactly.
Like, you know,
Depend on that.
who's in charge of the Parks Department?
Right.
Because the Parks Department has to say, we don't wanna lose that lease. And the state has to say, we want you to keep going and protect and keep the programs going. You know, they're bringing school children there and having camps and all sorts of stuff there, so, but the trust, we know in the back of our minds that this is not a guarantee. And that we might have to stand up and write letters to the governor.
Stand up and shout.
And write letters to the local politicians. Now, here's one thing that we sort of covered that's very weird about Arch Creek. The entrance is in North Miami. Most of the park is in North Miami Beach. It's leased and operated by the county. It's owned by the state. And the South Water Management controls the creek. So we have 5 jurisdictions at any one time that we would try to coalesce to get anything done. What are our chances, right? So it can be very frustrating, but we have some hardy people here who don't give up easy, right?
And it gives that the solution, is permanent, no, not for
Yes.
50 years,
We'd-
it has to be permanent.
We'd like to see something get sorted out among all of that, where maybe one of the jurisdictions gives up their 36 feet, you know, something, but they don't do that. So we'll just keep our small group of party people aware and active, and then hopefully hand it off to the next generation who appreciates what we've done. There always has to be some young people coming up who see it and appreciate it, and school children go there. And this is how Maureen originally got involved, her son went there, so stories like that, one never knows when a school bus pulls up with 4th graders, how that turns out 20 years later.
So you might take your grandkids to the
When
park.
did they stop letting cars go across it?
Sorry again?
When did they stop cars going across the creek? When the bridge collapsed.
When the bridge collapsed.
Yes, well, when the bridge collapsed, certainly. And that was 1972.
Before,
But 1972, there weren't really cars going across, really. I mean,
if you knew about it, you could.
You
go
could.
across there.
you could, but it was more like a forgotten road.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure it had to be a one-way or something, you know, like the little Chinese bridge at the Deering Estate, you know, was once Ingram Highway. And you know, the story is Mr. Deering got him to move the road, so it didn't go past his house. And so, but the road was still there, and if you knew about it, you could access it. And now it's cut off and you can only bicycle or walk there. So I think there was probably some sort of diminishing of that style there. Any more questions, Arch Creek?
Yes,
Oh,
please.
when the bridge collapsed back in that day, 32, there was rumors that it had been sabotaged.
Yes. There was all sorts of rumors immediately that somebody who was against saving the property got involved. There was no evidence of dynamite. But remember this also, and when you're there next month and we're enjoying meet at the bridge, everything kind of stops for a minute when the big train goes by. And the ground goes like this a little bit. So my personal theory is that ever since, 1895, when the train made it through there, to Arch Creek, the ground has been shaking a bit. And it was a pretty sturdy arch. I mean, when you looked at it, it was pretty sturdy. But I think that constant shaking, but how ironic that it was the weekend that the group returned from Tallahassee victorious, that it was suddenly gone. So that juxtaposition did cause a lot of rumors. But it wouldn't have been easy to blow it up, But I wonder if it wasn't showing some signs along the way of losing some structural, integrity. Well, thank you for listening to our little story on Arch Creek. Yes, now, one thing about Arch Creek, come on up, is that people who collect postcards.
There are tons of these postcards.
How many postcards are there of Arch Creek? Because it was a picturesque, beautiful place, right? So here you go, some postcards.
Well, I happen to have some postcards and some are duplicates, but the interesting thing is some show the arch and some are farther away and you see mainly the creek. And I'm gonna put these on different sides and you can just pass them around. In fact, you might want to turn on the light so people can see better. This one in the upper, I'm so bad at this, is this the right side?
Yeah.
Okay, the upper right side shows sort of a dark brown. And I transcribed what was written on the back of that particular card because it referred specifically to the Arch Creek. Although one of them, this one over here, says they, and then it doesn't say anything, but I think they meant to say, they say this is beautiful. We have not been there. But this one that I transcribed, I'm gonna start passing these around, but I'll read the transcription too, because it's kind of interesting. So just pass these around. They're pretty typical if you have any idea. Okay. Yeah. The one,
A little closer.
the one with the stone was written on October 1st, 1922. And I have cards on there from 22, 28, 31, 38, and then some aren't dated. And the person was living downtown at 233 Northeast 5th Street. Probably one of the apartment buildings or something down there. And anyway, I won't go through all of it, but it was written to somebody in Springfield, Ohio. And she's lamenting that they left in such a hurry that she didn't have to say a chance to say goodbye to all her friends. Now, remember, this is October 1st. Well, we struck terribly hot weather. So for somebody coming from Springfield, Ohio in October, it must have seemed horrible here. I stay in the shade and do not cook much. I have not been to church, but think I will try tonight. I miss our good northern vegetables. They're out of season here, but in a month or so, they will be in, and we'll also have grapefruits and oranges. The avocado pear is in, and we have them often for salad. We was to the beach. I'm not correcting grammar, that's what it says. We was to the beach yesterday. Now, this is the part that's interesting about the Arch Creek. This brown stone is the natural arch and bridge on the Dixie Highway, just a little north of Miami. The creek runs under it. And it said, we started, I think, cleaning. At first, I thought it said draining, but I believe it says cleaning. We started cleaning Thursday. Have good health, and we'll have extra tomorrow. And so I'm going to take my rest now and tell the doctor to mail our bill here to Miami. Sincerely, Mrs. and two initials, Long, L-O-N-G. So I don't know if you have archives that reflect any people who worked on the bridge over the years, But this cleaning process, I was kind of wondering if you ran across anything where they referred to professional or volunteer people helping to clean.
She just talked about cleaning her house. I don't know, but-
I think, no, it was October of 1922.
And it was all written on the postcard.
Yes.
That's a lot to write on a postcard, isn't it?
This
You
big.
know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was mailed from Miami, Florida, Station A. That was the post office, and some people go with they know about the post office things, and this was, which I assume was the main post office downtown.
Right, that sounds like it.
Yeah, but it was just interesting that
I
they
think that's
referred to the
wonderful.
bridge, so.
And if you notice,
Anyway.
these photos are
Thank you.
colorized, aren't they?
Yeah,
And it was quite an art in the day. I think everybody who collects postcards, there's that era before color photography
Yeah.
of very talented people coloring postcards one at a time, or did they make a master and print it? I don't know, but it's probably printed, right? But yeah, like reimagining the colors. Trees are green, you know, but I think they're just beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Did somebody say the stone was brown?
She alluded to that in her postcard.
because it's colored brown on the card, whereas in
Oh.
other photos, it tends to be the gray at the core.
So that was the artist rendition
So that was
of
the
it being
artist's
brown.
rendition.
Oh,
I think
Yeah.
that's
I
why.
wonder if it was cat rock.
It's hard, oolite. I
Yeah.
mean, it's limestone, oolite, of some derivative of it.
Yeah, the cat rock is really, hard.
Yeah,
It's not like,
I think you're right. There's a good chance of that. After all, it was what was left when the water over millennia washed out the rest, wasn't it? There must have been a mound there that it just ran underground until that was the last part left. But think about it, originally, the fort at Fort Lauderdale and the fort at Fort Dallas, that was the only road that went between, and it went through the prairies of Miami, which were flooded 6 months of the year. So they would do this thing called corduroying, if you can imagine this, right? They would lay down logs and throw dirt on them to raise the level above flood stage. And imagine you're in your buggy and you're going to North Miami and you're like, Lord help me, you know, only now.
speed bumps.
You're driving over logs that had sand on it to get up out of it. That's why when they built Biscayne Boulevard in Brickell, it was on the high ridge. They actually surveyed and followed the high ridge. And the word I always heard when I was a kid was that Biscayne Boulevard didn't flood. But West Dixie Highway and the Military Trail was always flooded, always full of mosquitoes, and really not pleasant. So yeah, look, the folks that we knew that were there a long time ago, they were pretty hardy people.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have lived in a nice town somewhere, you know, down to the opera, you know, like, you lived as a pioneer in a rugged place, and you eked out every little bit of your existence with the help of your neighbors. It was a tough thing. I remember one statistic I knew was that in 1910, of all the families that moved to Dade County that year, 2/3 of them turned around and left. Because they had been told wonderful stories about tropical fruit and your asthma and your emphysema would go away, and, you know, it was paradise, and they got here like mosquitoes, it's flooded, and there's nothing here.
It's humid.
There's no roads, you know, so the people who did stay, and this I think goes to the core of why our group exists. Miami Pioneers exists because in 1936, a lot of the old timers said, you know what, the people who were here early and stuck it out, they deserve to be celebrated.
Yeah.
So that's why we exist.
One thing I was there's one postcard there and it's dated 1928, and it shows a little building, almost like a house.
There was a little building.
So there was a building there that early.
There were several buildings at different
I
times.
wondered,
Yeah.
if there's another smaller building, you can't see very clearly, but it's obvious you can see,
Right.
but it's something.
There was something almost looked like a toll building, like, you know, like stop here and pay the toll
Yeah,
before you
like
cross.
a small, yeah.
I don't think it was, but
But I do know that family stories were that during Prohibition, there was a tea house there. Let's go and have some tea. You know, and it was far enough away from the nearest sheriff that nobody worried about it. You know, when Dade County became a dry county, first in 1913, and then again when Broward County broke off, they said, oh, all the teetotalers are now out of the vote, let's vote again, and they voted dry again in 1915. But it was generally accepted that that was for local guys who didn't show up at work because they drank too much and hang out in the pool hall. That was not for tourists. Good Lord, there still has to be champagne at the resort, you know. But it was to keep those ne'er-do-wells from just screwing around and, you know, not taking care of their family or showing up for work. So that was again, you know, stories I heard when I was a kid. Drinking was very much allowed in certain circumstances with the right people.
Always medicinal.
Is that?
Always medicinal.
Yeah, it's always medicinal.
It's just a family tradition.
Yeah, well. Marjorie Douglas, you know, drank a shot of Jack Daniels every day and lived to be 108. Hank.
Just a shameless plug here.
Yeah.
Wednesday, you guys are in history, Ian Pinckney,
Yeah.
who you all know very well. We're featuring her in the part of the Black History series of the film. And that'll be at 6
Is that Channel 4?
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, Channel 4, Enid.
Enid.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing that, Hank. Is that a piece you did?
Yep.
Great.
We just did one last week.
Wednesday,
It's been
6
around
o'clock.
a long time. We'll remember the radio announcer by the name of Butterball, Milton Smith.
Right.
A lot of old, you know, oldies but goodies in the 50s and 60s. And then we've got Dorsey, we've got Dana Dorsey coming up. But
That's
one
great.
that I'm really happy about is Clyde Killens, who was a entrepreneur in Overtown, and he's responsible for bringing in a lot of the major acts
Yeah.
that would appear on the
On the big
beach.
hotels.
And then he would tell them, hey, when you get through there, come over here. And so you got a big crowd of both black and white.
The late night jam sessions.
In Harlem of the South.
Yeah. Hampton House, etc.
Yep, so that's every Wednesday night. Butterball already been on, but the other, every Wednesday night.
So Wednesday night, 6 o'clock news, Channel 4, Black History Moments.
Yeah, then we go to Women's History in March.
That's good.
Yeah.
Keep you busy, Hank.
Yeah, well, we got Ellen Muir coming up.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna be talking to his, her
Son?
son, yeah, nice.
I've been trying to get the viewers to come and give us a talk about Helen
He's
Muir.
good, I've heard him speak, and that's.
Is it Toby? What's his name?
Toby, yeah.
Yeah. Put in a word for us, would you? Tell him that the Mining Pioneers has been trying to get him to be a speaker, or his daughter, Jane.
Yeah.
But let's bring back Helen Muir and, you know, appreciate what she did.
I'm just reading her book.
You know, the Florida collection at the main library is the Helen Muir
Yeah,
Florida
she
collection.
She did all of that.
So put in a plug with Toby, would you? Seriously.
Our other one that I really, I hope we can do it, is a lady by the name of Betty Mae Tiger Jumper.
Wow.
And you're gonna go, what the heck is all that about? She was a nurse, Seminole Indian. The father was Anglo, her mother was Seminole.
One of the Tiger family.
Tiger family couldn't go to white schools, couldn't go to black schools. Finally powered her way through getting an education, a degree in nursing.
Wow.
Came back to the res and was trying to help out with the health and was getting rejected by the elders saying, we don't want any of this new stuff. And so she goes, oh, wait a minute, I'll just combine it with the old stuff. And
Very smart.
It's a fabulous story.
Was that 30s, 40s era?
Yeah,
50s?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, fascinating.
So I'm having a good time.
So she found her way to bridge the old ways and the modern scary stuff.
Yep. If you look in Amazon, there are a bunch of books about her,
Okay.
mostly written by his son Moses, who we're trying to persuade to do TV.
Hank, I'm just about to put you in charge of programs now, so, you
Just
know,
watch our TV station.
put in a word for us when you see somebody of that caliber. That's alive and, you know, willing. As alive as any of us are, which is fair.
What the living.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. You have fun? And I'll send out a note, and those who want to join me next month for the field trip at Arch Creek, I'll love this time. We'll meet at the Arch, meet at the bridge.
The bridge.
Yeah, it was Vandercar, it was a crazy artist. At a weird house.
Weird house, statues, I used to see.
He alluded to the fact that he was-
But you know, he also had a seaman that was extremely hard. Shortly, he made his sculptures.